He thought it was a blind date, but when the woman softly said, "I'm only here to say thank you," he was stunned. In that moment, he realized there was a story behind this meeting, one that would change both of their lives forever. David's hands trembled as he adjusted his tie. The coffee shop buzzed with afternoon chatter, but all he could hear was his own heartbeat. His friend Mark had insisted this woman was perfect for him. "Just meet her," Mark had said. "You'll like her." Now, watching a brunette in a grey coat walk toward his table, David felt his stomach drop. She wasn't smiling. She looked nervous, almost sad. She sat down without ordering anything. "David?" she asked. "That's me," he said, forcing a smile. "You must be." "I'm only here to say thank you." The words hung in the air like smoke. David blinked. His mind raced through possibilities. Had they met before? Did he help her somehow? He studied her face, late 30s, tired eyes, scar barely visible on her left cheek. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Life Frames. "I'm sorry," David said slowly. "I don't understand." Mark said this was a blind date. "I know," she looked down at her hands. "I lied to him. I told him I was interested in meeting you. But that's not why I'm here." David felt confusion turning into something else. Concern, maybe. Or fear. "Then why are you here?" She reached into her purse and pulled out a photograph. It was old, faded, the edges worn. She placed it on the table between them. David picked it up. The photo showed a young boy, maybe 7 or 8, grinning at the camera. He wore a baseball uniform. Behind him stood a younger version of David himself, hand on the boy's shoulder. David's breath caught. The memory came flooding back. A summer camp 15 years ago. He'd volunteered as a counselor for 1 season. Just 1. "That's my son," the woman said quietly. "His name was Michael." Was. The word hit David like a punch. He looked up at her, and now he saw it. The grief etched into every line of her face. David couldn't speak. He stared at the photograph, at the boy's bright smile, at his own younger face. The woman, he still didn't know her name, watched him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "I don't remember," he started, but that was a lie. He did remember. Flashes of memory. A quiet kid who loved baseball, who sat alone during lunch until David made it a point to sit with him. "Michael talked about you for years," she said. "You were his favorite counselor. He said you made him feel like he mattered." David set the photo down carefully. "I'm so sorry for your loss, but I still don't understand why. Let me explain." She took a shaky breath. After that summer, Michael changed. He was always shy, always picked on at school. But when he came back from camp, he was different, confident, happy. He said you taught him how to stand up for himself, how to believe in himself. David felt a lump forming in his throat. He barely remembered the details. He'd volunteered at that camp because he needed something to do before college started. He'd never thought about the impact. He kept that photo on his desk until she paused, steadying herself. Until he died. 3 months ago. "How?" David asked, then immediately regretted it. "I'm sorry, you don't have to." "Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light." Her voice was flat, mechanical. She'd probably told this story too many times. He was 22. Just graduated college. Had his whole life ahead of him. David felt sick. He reached across the table, then pulled his hand back, unsure if the gesture would be welcome. "I found something after he died," she continued. "A journal. He wrote in it every day for years. And you were in it. Not every entry, but enough. He wrote about how you changed his life that summer. How you gave him the courage to keep going when things got hard." She pulled out a small notebook, worn and weathered. David recognized it immediately. The kind of cheap journals sold at drugstores. She opened it to a marked page and slid it toward him. The handwriting was messy but readable. David's eyes found his own name in the entry dated 5 years ago. "Bad day today. Wanted to give up. Then I remembered what David said at camp, that tough days don't last, but tough people do. Going to keep pushing." David's vision blurred. He hadn't said anything profound. It was just something his own father used to tell him. "There are dozens of entries like this," she said. "You probably don't remember him. You probably helped hundreds of kids. But you saved my son's life that summer, David. And I needed you to know that." David pushed the journal back across the table, unable to read more. His coffee sat untouched, going cold. Outside the window, people walked by with shopping bags and phone calls, living ordinary lives. Nothing felt ordinary anymore. What was he like? David asked. After camp, I mean. Growing up. A small smile crossed her face. The first he'd seen. Stubborn, kind. He wanted to be a teacher. Elementary school. He said he wanted to be for other kids what you were for him. The words hit David harder than anything else she'd said. He'd spent the last 15 years working in finance, chasing promotions and bonuses. He'd forgotten that summer entirely until 5 minutes ago. Now it felt the most important thing he'd ever done. I'm Anna, by the way, she said. I should have started with that. Anna. David repeated the name, cementing it in his memory. Did Mark know about any of this? No. I found you through the camp's old records. Then I tracked you down on social media. Mark's profile said he knew you, so I created a fake profile, told him I was interested in being set up. I'm sorry for the deception. Don't apologize, David said quickly. I'm glad you found me. I just wish. He didn't know how to finish that sentence. Wish you could have known him, seen who he became. Anna pulled out her phone, swiping through photos. She turned the screen toward David. This was him last year. At his graduation, David saw a young man in a cap and gown, broad smile, eyes full of life. He had Anna's nose, her cheekbones. But that smile, that was the same smile from the camp photo. He looks happy, David said. He was. Finally, Anna took the phone back, staring at the photo. Middle school was hell for him. High school wasn't much better, but he survived it. Because of what you taught him that summer. Because you showed him he was worth something. David shook his head. I didn't do anything special. I just talked to him, included him in activities, basic counselor stuff. That's everything to a kid who feels invisible, Anna said sharply. Then, softer. You have no idea how many nights I stayed up worried about him. How many times I found him crying in his room because of something cruel, another kid said. Then he went to camp, and he came back different. Stronger, he said. A counselor named David told him that people who hurt others are usually hurting themselves. That it wasn't his fault. Do you remember saying that? David did remember, suddenly. A conversation by the lake. Michael had asked why the other kids were mean to him. David had tried to explain that bullies often acted out of their own pain. Simple psychology. Nothing groundbreaking. I probably read it in a book somewhere, David muttered. But you said it to him. At the exact moment he needed to hear it. Anna closed her eyes. I'm not here to make you feel guilty or responsible. I'm here because my son died believing you were one of the best people he ever met. And I needed to thank you for that, for giving him those years of strength. David felt tears threatening. He blinked them back. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why now? Why wait 3 months? Anna's composure cracked slightly. I couldn't face it, reading his journal, seeing your name over and over, knowing he never got to see you again, or thank you himself. It felt like unfinished bisque. His therapist said I needed closure. This is me trying to find it. They sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop noise seemed distant, muted. David's mind spun with questions he didn't know how to ask. Finally, Anna broke the silence. There's something else, she said. Something I haven't told you yet. David looked up. Her expression had changed. There was something darker there now. Something heavier. Michael left letters. For people who mattered to him. His best friend. His grandfather. Me. She reached into her purse again. And you? She pulled out an envelope. David's name was written on the front in that same messy handwriting. The envelope was sealed. He wrote this 2 years ago, Anna explained. He updated his letters every few years, apparently. Part of some exercise his therapist gave him about gratitude and closure. I found them in a box in his closet. David stared at the envelope like it might explode. Did you read it? No. It has your name on it. She pushed it across the table. I don't know what it says, but I think you should have it. David's hand shook as he picked up the envelope. It was light, maybe 2 pages inside. He turned it over, seeing where Michael had sealed it carefully. I don't know if I can read this here, David admitted. I understand. Anna stood up. I should go anyway. I've taken enough of your time. Wait. David stood too, awkwardly fast. Is there anything I can do, for you I mean? Or for Michael's memory? Anna considered this. He was going to volunteer at an after-school program. For kids who struggled socially, like he did. He'd just been accepted before. She trailed off. If you wanted to honor him, you could do something like that. But you don't owe us anything, David. You already gave us more than you know. She turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. In his journal, Michael wrote about wanting to find you someday, to thank you in person. I'm doing it for him, but I know it's not the same. I'm sorry he never got the chance. I'm sorry too, David said, his voice breaking slightly. Anna nodded once, then walked out of the coffee shop. David watched her go, this woman who'd lost everything and still found the strength to track down a stranger just to say thank you. He sat back down, the envelope in his hands. Around him, life continued. A barista called out a name. Someone laughed at a nearby table. A child dropped a cookie and started crying. David opened the envelope. The letter was dated 2 years and 3 months ago. The handwriting was neater than in the journal, more careful. Dear David, it began. You probably don't remember me. I was the quiet kid at baseball camp 15 years ago. The one who ate lunch alone until you sat down next to me. I'm writing this letter as part of a therapy exercise, but also because I've wanted to tell you this for years. You saved my life. David had to stop reading. He set the letter down, pressed his palms against his eyes. When he could breathe normally again, he continued. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean literally. The week before camp, I'd decided I didn't want to live anymore. I was 11 years old, and I'd already given up. Then I met you. You treated me like I mattered. Like I was worth spending time with. You taught me how to throw a curveball, and told me stories about your own childhood. You made me laugh. You made me feel human again. By the end of that summer, I didn't want to die anymore. I wanted to live. I wanted to be like you, someone who made other people feel valued. So I kept going, through middle school hell, through high school loneliness, through every moment I wanted to quit. I thought about what you said. Tough days don't last, but tough people do. And I became tougher. I'm in college now, studying education. I want to work with kids like me. Kids who feel invisible. I want to be their David. David couldn't finish the letter in the coffee shop. He paid his bill, walked to his car, and sat in the parking lot with the pages in his lap. His hands trembled as he read the final paragraph. I've looked for you online, but I can't find you. Maybe you don't use social media. Maybe you changed your name. Maybe you don't want to be found. But if you ever read this, I want you to know that you made a difference. You changed the entire trajectory of my life. I'm alive because of you, and I'm going to spend my life trying to pass on what you gave me. Thank you doesn't feel like enough, but thank you for seeing me when I was invisible, for caring when no one else did, for saving my life without even knowing it. I hope you're happy, wherever you are. I hope you know how extraordinary you are. With gratitude always, Michael. David sat in his car and cried. He couldn't remember the last time he'd cried like this, deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere primal. People walked past his car, some glancing in with concern, but he didn't care. When he finally stopped, he felt hollowed out, empty but somehow lighter. He pulled out his phone and typed Michael's full name into a search engine. The obituary came up immediately. Michael James Winters, 22, died March 15th in a tragic car accident. He is survived by his mother, Anna Winters, and grandparents Thomas and Marie Winters. Michael was a recent graduate of State University with a degree in elementary education. He had a passion for helping children and planned to work with underserved youth. In lieu of flowers, the family requests donations to the Youth Mentorship Foundation. David read the obituary 3 times. Then he clicked on the funeral home link. There were photos from the service, Michael's casket covered in flowers, Anna standing with an older couple who must be her parents, a slideshow of Michael's life. One photo stopped David cold. It was Michael at camp, probably taken the same day as the photo Anna had shown him. Michael was holding a baseball, mid-throw, laughing. In the background, partially out of frame, David could see himself. He'd been so young then. 20 years old, between freshman and sophomore year of college, volunteering because his parents said it would look good on a resume. He'd shown up thinking he was doing community service. He'd had no idea he was saving a life. David's phone buzzed. A text from Mark. Hey man, how'd it go? She seemed really interested in meeting you. David stared at the message. He didn't know how to explain what had just happened. Finally, he typed. It wasn't a date. I'll explain later. But Mark, thank you for setting it up. It was important. He drove home on autopilot, his mind spinning. His apartment felt too quiet when he walked in. He stood in his kitchen, letter still in his hand, and looked around at his life. Nice furniture. Expensive appliances, empty rooms. What had he done in the 15 years since that summer? He'd climbed the corporate ladder, made good money, bought nice things, and he couldn't remember a single moment that mattered like that summer apparently had. David opened his laptop and pulled up the Youth Mentorship Foundation website, the one Anna mentioned in the obituary. They were looking for volunteers, elementary school tutors, middle school mentors, high school career advisors. He filled out an application before he could talk himself out of it. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He opened his old photo albums, the physical ones his mother had insisted he keep. He found the summer camp section. There were dozens of photos, kids skimming, playing baseball, roasting marshmallows. And there, in several photos, was Michael, always on the edge of the frame. Always slightly apart from the others. Except in the photos where David was in the shot too. Then Michael was close, engaged, smiling. How had David forgotten this kid? This summer? These moments that had apparently meant everything to someone? His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. David? It's Anna. I'm sorry to call. Mark gave me your number. I hope that's okay. Of course. Is everything all right? I wanted to make sure you were okay. That letter was a lot. I should have warned you better about what was in it. David sat down heavily on his couch. I'm glad I read it. Glad I know. I just wish that you'd known earlier, that you could have been in touch with him. Anna's voice was gentle. Me too. But Michael wouldn't have wanted you to feel guilty. He would have wanted you to know you made a difference. Can I ask you something? David said, gripping the phone tighter. Why didn't Michael look harder for me? If he wanted to find me so badly, why didn't he? I don't know. Contact the camp. They would have had my information. Anna was quiet for a moment. He tried. When he was 16, he called the camp. But they'd shut down years earlier. The property was sold. The records were gone. He even drove there once. I didn't know this until I read his journal. He said the whole place was empty, just an overgrown field where the cabins used to be. It broke his heart. David closed his eyes. He'd never gone back to that camp, never thought about it again after that summer ended. It was just a job, just something to fill time. He'd had no idea it mattered. I looked for you too, you know. Anna continued. After reading his journal, before he died, even. I wanted to surprise him, find you, set up a meeting. I thought it would help him, meeting his hero as an adult. But I couldn't track you down. You have a common name, and there's no digital trail from that summer. No social media posts, no photos tagged. It's like you disappeared. I did in a way. David ran a hand through his hair. I deleted most of my old social media a few years ago. Got tired of it, and I never posted about that summer because it felt like, I don't know, ancient history. Something that didn't matter. It mattered to Michael. The words hung in the air. David felt the weight of them, the responsibility of knowing that his forgotten summer had been the most important one in someone else's life. Anna, the volunteer program. The one Michael wanted to join. Do they still need people? Yes, they're actually desperate for male mentors. Boys especially need positive male role models, and there's a shortage of men willing to volunteer. I applied tonight. I don't know if they'll accept me, but I want to try. I don't know, honor Michael somehow. You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. David stood, pacing his apartment. That summer was the best thing I did with my life, and I didn't even realize it. I've spent 15 years chasing the wrong things, making money, climbing ladders, impressing people who don't matter, and a kid I barely remember was building his entire life on something I said without thinking. You did remember him though, Anna said softly. When you saw that photo, I saw it in your face. You remembered. She was right. The memories had come flooding back the moment he'd seen Michael's face. The quiet kid who loved baseball. The way his whole face lit up when he finally hit a home run. The Thaman by the lake when they talked about bullies and pain and why people were cruel. I wish I'd known, David said. I wish I could have told him thank you too. For reminding me what actually matters. He would have loved that. Anna's voice cracked slightly. Can I tell you something? Something I haven't told anyone. Anything. The night before he died, Michael called me. He was so excited. He'd gotten the volunteer position. He was supposed to start the following week. He said, "Mom, I'm finally going to be someone's David." Those were his exact words. And then the next morning, she couldn't finish. David felt his chest constrict.
Anna, I'm so sorry.
I know. Everyone is. But that's not why I'm telling you. I'm telling you because Michael's last happy thought was about you. About becoming the person you were for him. And I think he'd want you to know that. He'd want you to understand that you gave him purpose, direction, a reason to keep living, and a goal worth working toward. David walked to his window, looking out at the city lights. I feel like I should have done more, should have kept in touch somehow, made sure he was okay. You were 20 years old. You were a summer camp counselor. You did your job and more. You can't blame yourself for not knowing the impact you had. But if I'd known, you would have what? Adopted him? Mentored him for the next 15 years? David, you were practically a kid yourself. Anna's tone became firmer. Michael never blamed you for not staying in touch. He understood you had your own life. He was just grateful for the time he had with you. Don't turn his gratitude into your guilt. David nodded. Even though she couldn't see him, she was right, but the weight remained. There's something else, Anna said. In Michael's things, I found a box full of things from that summer. The baseball you signed for him, a camp t-shirt, a friendship bracelet someone made, and a list. He'd written down everything you taught him that summer. A list? Everything. How to throw a curveball. How to make people laugh. How to stand up straight even when you're scared. How to be kind even when others aren't. It went on for 2 pages. David. 2 pages of lessons from a single summer. Can I see it? David asked. The box? Anna hesitated. Are you sure? It might be overwhelming. I need to see it. Please. They agreed to meet the next day at Anna's house. David barely slept that night. He kept reading Michael's letter, finding new meaning in every sentence. He looked up old photos, tried to remember more details from that summer. The memories came slowly, like developing photographs. Michael teaching younger kids how to tie their shoes. Michael finally making a friend in the phase week of camp. Michael hugging David goodbye with tears in his eyes, saying, "Thank you for everything." David had hugged him back, said something generic like "Stay strong, buddy," and moved on with his life. He'd never looked back. The next morning, he drove to Anna's address. It was a small house in a quiet suburb, well maintained but modest. Anna answered the door looking exhausted, like she hadn't slept either. "Come in," she said simply. The house was filled with photos of Michael. Childhood pictures, school portraits, graduation photos. David saw Michael's life laid out in frames. The quiet kid growing into a confident young man. In the later photos he was smiling broadly, surrounded by friends. He looked happy. He looked like someone who'd survived and thrived. Anna led him to the dining room table where a cardboard box sat waiting. This is it. Everything he kept from that summer. David sat down, suddenly nervous. Anna sat across from him, watching carefully. Inside the box was a time capsule. The baseball David had signed, he'd written to Michael, "Keep swinging," and his signature. A camp pinwood t-shirt, faded and worn. A plastic water bottle with the camp logo. Several photos, including duplicates of ones David had found in his own albums. A lanyard with Michael's name tag still attached. And at the bottom, a spiral notebook. Is this? David opened the notebook carefully. His notes from that summer. He wrote down things you said, things he wanted to remember. The pages were filled with quotes in a child's handwriting. David says bullies are usually just hurt people. David says it's okay to be scared as long as you don't let fear win. David says everyone is good at something, you just have to find your thing. David says real strength is being kind when it's hard. David flipped through page after page of his own words, reflected back at him through the eyes of a lonely 11-year-old. He didn't remember saying most of these things. They felt like common sense, the kind of basic advice any adult might give a kid, but Michael had written them down like commandments. He kept this his whole life, Anna said. Even in college, when I helped him move into his dorm, I saw this notebook on his desk. David found a page near the end filled with a single sentence, written over and over in different handwriting styles. Like Michael had practiced it. I want to be like David when I grow up. I can't breathe, David said suddenly, closing the notebook. This is too much. Anna reached across the table and took his hand. I know, but you needed to see it. You needed to understand what you meant to him. I was nobody. I was just a college kid working a summer job. To Michael, you were everything. Anna squeezed his hand. And that's the point, David. We never know when we're being someone's everything. We never know which conversation will change a life or which kindness will save someone. You were just being decent to a lonely kid. And it meant the world. David looked at Anna, really looked at her. She'd lost her son, the person she loved most in the world. And here she was, comforting a stranger, trying to help him understand the magnitude of his own accidental gift. "How are you so strong?" he asked. "I'm not. I'm broken. But Michael would want me to do this. He'd want you to know." And honestly, Anna's eyes filled with tears. "Telling you this, seeing how much you care, it helps me. It reminds me that Michael's life mattered, that his death wasn't just a tragedy. He touched people, he was planning to touch more. That legacy doesn't disappear just because he's gone." David wiped his own eyes. "What can I do? How can I help?" Anna smiled sadly. "You're already doing it. You applied to volunteer. You're taking time to remember him, to honor him. That's more than enough." "It doesn't feel like enough." "It never does." Anna stood, walking to a bookshelf. She pulled down a framed photo and brought it back to the table. This was taken a month before he died, at his graduation party. Michael stood surrounded by friends and family, Anna's arm around his shoulders. He was laughing at something off camera, his whole face alive with joy. He was happy, Anna said. Because of you, he lived long enough to be happy. He had friends. He had purpose. He had a future, even if it was cut short. You gave him that. David traced the edge of the frame with his finger. "I wish he'd found me. I wish we could have had that conversation he wanted." "Me too. Every day." Anna took the frame back, holding it close. "But we don't always get what we wish for. Sometimes we just have to be grateful for what we had." 3 weeks later, David sat in a middle school classroom, waiting for his first mentee to arrive. The Youth Mentorship Foundation had fast-tracked his application after he'd explained his connection to Michael. They'd paired him with a 7th grader named Marcus, who struggled socially and academically. David was terrified. The door opened and a skinny kid with glasses walked in, shoulders hunched, eyes on the floor. He looked exactly like Michael had in those camp photos. Invisible, defensive, expecting rejection. "Marcus?" David stood, offering his hand. The boy shook it limply, barely making eye contact. "Yeah, I'm David. Your mentor." "Cool." Marcus slumped into a chair. David sat down across from him, remembering what had worked 15 years ago. "Don't push too hard. Don't demand conversation. Just be present." "You like baseball?" David asked. Marcus shrugged. "Never played." "Basketball?" "Nah." "Video games?" A flicker of interest. "Some." They talked about video games for 20 minutes. Marcus slowly relaxed, his words coming easier. By the end of the session, he was almost smiling. "Same time next week?" David asked as Marcus packed up his backpack. "I guess." Marcus paused at the door. "You're not going to bail, are you?" "My last mentor stopped showing up after 2 sessions. David thought of Michael, of the letter, of the box of memories, of a life built on a single summer of kindness. "I'll be here," David said firmly. "Every week. I promise." Marcus nodded and left. David sat alone in the classroom, feeling the weight and wonder of the moment. Somewhere, he hoped, Michael was smiling. David's phone buzzed. A text from Anna. "How did it go?" He typed back. "Good. Really good. Thank you for pushing me to do this." "Thanks, Michael," she replied. "He's the one who showed both of us what matters." Over the following months, David met with Marcus every week. Slowly, he watched the boy transform. More confidence, better grades. Actual friends. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, just small, steady progress. The same progress Michael must have made. Anna and David stayed in touch. They met for coffee every few weeks, talking about Michael, about the mentorship program, about life. She told him stories about Michael's childhood, his struggles and triumphs. David shared updates about Marcus and 3 other kids he'd started mentoring. One afternoon, 6 months after their first meeting, Anna brought something new to their coffee date. "Michael made videos," she said, pulling out her phone. "I found them on his laptop. He recorded himself sometimes, processing his thoughts. There's one I want you to see." She turned the phone toward David. The video showed Michael, probably around age 20, sitting at a desk. He looked tired, but determined. "Day 73 of student teaching," Michael said to the camera. Had a rough one today. Kid in my class is being bullied. I tried to help, but I don't think I reached him. Felt useless. Then I remembered David, how he probably had no idea how much he was helping me that summer, how the smallest things made the biggest difference. So tomorrow, I'll try again. I'll sit with that kid at lunch. I'll ask him about his interests. I'll treat him like he matters, because maybe I'll be his David. Maybe I'll be the person who changes everything without even knowing it. The video ended. David stared at the blank screen, throat tight. He got it, Anna said softly. He understood what you'd given him, and he spent his life trying to pass it on. Did he? David asked. Pass it on, I mean. I got a letter after the funeral, from a student he taught. She said Michael was the first teacher who ever made her feel smart, that he changed her life. Anna smiled through tears. So yes, he passed it on. The ripples are still spreading. David thought about Marcus, about the other kids he was mentoring, about all the lives they might touch. Michael's death had been a tragedy, but his life had been a gift. And that gift was still being given, passed from hand to hand like a torch in the darkness. Thank you, David said to Anna, for finding me, for telling me about Michael, for giving me a chance to continue what he started. Thank you for caring enough to try. Anna raised her coffee cup. To Michael, the kid who reminded us what really matters. To Michael, David echoed, clinking his cup against hers. Outside the coffee shop window, the world continued its busy pace. But inside, two people sat in comfortable silence, honoring a young man who'd understood something most people never learn, that kindness multiplies, that small gestures echo across years, that a single summer can save a life and change countless others. David returned to mentoring with new purpose. Every week, he thought of Michael. Every time a kid opened up or smiled or made progress, he saw Michael's face. Every small victory felt like honoring that letter, that box of memories, that life cut too short, but lived with remarkable meaning. And sometimes, late at night, David would reread Michael's letter. The words never got easier, but they got more precious. They were a reminder that we're all connected, that our actions ripple outward in ways we can't predict or measure, that being kind to a lonely kid at summer camp might be the most important thing we ever do. He kept the letter in his wallet, along with the photo of Michael in his baseball uniform. Every time he doubted himself or questioned whether mentoring mattered, he'd touch that wallet and remember, tough days don't last, but the people we touch through kindness last forever.